Everyone, Lance here, and today Sarah Banta, owner of Accelerated Health Products, is going to be talking through some additional questions people might have, or some of the obstacles that we can face when we're going into a ketogenic diet. This is part two. We had another part which you can check in the description below for links to the other questions we tackled last time. And we're going to continue this series. So be sure and subscribe if you want to make sure you get the next questions that we'll be talking through in the future. But also in the description area, there will be additional notes and information regarding all the questions we'll be talking about, links to Sarah's website as well, which is acceleratedhealthproducts.com. A quick reminder, though, before we get started and talking about the questions, is that everything we're talking about today, it's for educational purposes only. So nothing we're discussing is meant to cure, treat, or diagnose any illness or disease. So Sarah, thanks again for joining again on this topic of ketogenic-related questions. I know there's a lot you get from clients. I've had several of these exact same questions as well. So really appreciate you taking the time to go through these. So let's go ahead and dive into our first one today. And that is, I think of it as a lifestyle question. You know, can you get the benefits or still get the benefits of a ketogenic diet if you're following the 80-20 rule? Meaning, let's say you follow keto 80% of the time, and then 20% of the time you're living a little, so to speak. So you're having a glass of wine, you're having some ice cream or cake or some pizza. And let's say in this scenario, the person is fine with taking exogenous ketones to stay in ketosis, doesn't mind the potential weight gain that might come from eating these cheat foods. But could you explain a little bit about this type of scenario, what your thoughts are, if there's still benefits, or, you know, if it's, what do you think about that?
This is such a common question. And you have to think, anyone that's coming from the standard American diet, sugar is a drug. Sugar is more addictive than cocaine and heroin. So when you're telling someone, I'm never going to be able to have my sugar again, it's like they get very fearful or anxious. So I understand where this is coming from. But the neat thing is, once you feel the ketones, you won't ever want to go back. But to answer the question, you can cheat. You can get back into ketosis quickly with the exogenous ketones. Without the supplement, it will take 2 days to 4 weeks to get back into ketosis, depending on your level of insulin resistance. There was a study that had athletes. So these are athletes, fit athletes, not diabetics, do keto 5 days a week and then carb up on the weekends versus a group that just did keto. Everything else was the same. Calories were the same, that sort of thing. The group that stayed in ketosis outperformed the other group, and the carb up group actually was out of ketosis, I believe, through Wednesday of each week. So they really only experienced ketosis 2 days a week. So here they thought they were doing 5 days in ketosis, 2 days out. But this was without exogenous ketones, but these athletes were keto adapted. So their bodies knew how to switch in and out of ketosis. So needless to say, for the insulin resistant person, a cheat day would kick them out of ketosis for a lot longer. If you have type 2 diabetes, one piece of bread, your body treats it like eating a loaf of bread. But if you're someone that's in ketosis and has been for, a couple of years, having a piece of bread is not going to be that big of a deal, and they could be back into ketosis the next day. So this also depends on the state of your health and how insulin resistant you are. And if you've been in ketosis for over 6 months versus someone who just started, the cheat day will affect you differently. And if you do cheat, expect to feel like you have a hangover the next day. Most people don't know that hangovers from alcohol are actually from being dehydrated and from the sugar. And so, you having a cheat day with just sugar, you're going to have that same feeling. You're going to feel bad. You feel like you don't realize how badly you feel living on carbs until you're off of them, and then you introduce them back. So it isn't like you're feeling worse than you previously were feeling living on a carb-dominant diet, but it's in stark contrast to the feeling you get on the keto fuel diet. So
Mm.
the inflammation comes back, the mental brain fog, all of that stuff comes back. It isn't worse than what you had before you started keto, but you forgot how bad you felt. And it's all, it's actually a good reminder. I don't mind people cheating because it's a reminder of where they don't want to go again. And like I said before, sugar is a drug. So that feeling of, I can't believe I'm never going to have sugar again. I can't believe I'm going to just eat this clean forever and ever and ever. It's once that drug's out of your system, you don't want it anymore. You feel awesome. So it's really, it's not something I tell people to worry about. I really try to get people to commit to a month of eating clean. No alcohol is best for at least a month, because then they feel the good feeling. And then if they do cheat, they know what it's coming from. And then in their own mind, they can decide whether it's worth it or not.
Excellent. Get people to a point where they're experiencing the benefits and then go from there.
Right.
Excellent. Okay. That's super helpful. Our next question then is, how do you determine what a good daily carb intake would be based on your goals, current weight? And I know we talked about this a little bit last time, where you mentioned kind of a 20 to 40 gram carbs a day, but could you go into that maybe in a little bit more detail? Again, how does someone know what their specific maybe daily amount of carbs, what would be recommended for them, or how do they determine that?
You know, everybody is different, and you really have to listen to your body. I recommend starting with 20 grams or less in the beginning, so that your body truly gets into ketosis and you learn what that feeling is. Now, women are a lot more complicated than men. Their cycles go up and down, and may make them feel a little different, where they may feel like they need more carbs than others. But you want to get your body keto adapted and then play around with it. It's individual, depending on age, insulin resistance, hormones. Most people want to lose weight, but there are those athletes or naturally thin people who don't want to lose weight. And that doesn't mean that you eat carbs. You eat the appropriate amount of protein for your goal, no more than 20 grams at a time, because it's really hard on your kidneys. Because remember, keto is not a high protein diet. You fill in the caloric intake with healthy fats and green veggies. Eat as many green veggies as you want. If you're type 2 diabetic, you may need to bring your carbs down even lower than 20 grams. If you're an athlete, you might be able to get away with maybe 50 grams a day. But even for the male athlete that wants to gain muscle weight, you can do it by adding the healthy fat and protein calories and not the carbs. My 16-year-old son is doing that right now. He's trying to put on muscle. And the beauty of keto is it helps the body maintain muscle mass, while a high carb diet actually breaks down the muscle and uses a lot of calories and energy to rebuild that muscle back up. So you're taking 2 steps forward and 1 step back when on a glucose or carb dependent diet. While with keto, you're just moving forward. You're maintaining that muscle mass. You're adding in the extra calories from fat and protein. And so you're just building on that extra protein or that extra muscle that you've already built and not breaking it down. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that sounds good. Okay. That's good. So then I guess the next question I'm thinking of that others, this is one that I've had as well, is there any potential harm towards kidneys from an increase in protein intake? As we're talking about eating more protein, could this be an issue for some or people that have weakened or compromised kidneys?
It's very interesting that you ask that, because that's something that I have to be very careful with my son. Because as he's trying to gain weight, the coaches are pushing the whey protein shakes and loading in on the protein. And it is a concern, right? Because high protein diets are really stressful on not just the kidneys, but the liver. So you don't want to stress your kidneys with more than 20 grams of protein at a time. And what people don't realize also is as you're throwing down that whey protein shake, it actually spikes your insulin. And the whey protein is so easily digestible that it quickly burdens the kidneys. So you have to be careful with that type of protein as well. We have to, as we're wanting to gain the weight and not have too much protein, you really have to look at the other calories that you're taking in, and you don't need the carbs, because the one thing about carbs, when you add in too many carbs, that can stress out the kidneys by retaining sodium. And so you are stressing out the kidneys in two ways, protein and carbs. So by taking the carbs out, you are actually putting a lot less stress on the kidneys, and you just fill in the extra calories with healthy fats. So my rule of thumb is like I said before, lots of greens, 20 grams of protein at a time. If that's our goal, is to really get as much as we can in, and then fill in the calories with the healthy fats, the avocados, the coconut oil, MCT oil, olive oil, that sort of thing. And foods like eggs and fatty fish like salmon, where you've got that nice balance of healthy omegas and anti-inflammatory fats, and giving the body the calories it needs, but not giving it too much protein at once.
Okay, great. So it's not so much the quantity of protein, as long like if you're eating a lot of protein throughout the day, it's just more the all at once that you have to be more careful. Like you said, no more than 20 grams at a time. Is that the right? I guess.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
Keto is not a high protein diet. It's actually only about 15 to 30% protein, and then 70 to 80% fat, and 5 to 10% carbs. So it's actually the easiest out of all the diets on your kidneys. A high carb diet is harder on the kidneys. And like I said before, it helps your kidneys retain water and sodium. And that's one reason people love keto in the first couple of weeks, is as soon as they cut out the carbs, they lose 5-10 pounds of water weight. But that's because your kidneys are letting go of the water and the sodium. So a high protein diet is very hard on the kidneys, but if you're focused on the fatty meats and you're actually eating a lot of fats and not as much, then you're not eating as much protein as you think. Also, the health issues related to the heart actually come from eating high fats with carbs. So when people are worried about eating too much saturated fat, it's actually putting the butter on the bread. It's not the butter. So if you're only going to do part keto and part cheat, you may see a rise in all of your heart risks. And it's the carbs that are causing the damage to the arteries and causing metabolic diseases. And with high protein and high fat and high carbs, the three, you'll see your health go in the wrong direction.
Okay. So then, kind of on a related note with talking about protein here, can too much protein be a hindrance to ketosis? Can you start to do too much or lean too much into the protein realm? Maybe you're having too many steaks or too much chicken or something like that. And again, you're kind of talking about this a little bit before, but just to go into a little bit more detail, can you have too much of a good thing with protein then? Or can it be a hindrance, I should say, to ketosis?
Right. And this is such a great question, because as I've been in keto, I've been playing around with this myself. In the beginning, I was scared to have too much protein, and now I'm eating a lot more protein. What they found is that if you are keto adapted and you eat more protein, you can stay in ketosis. Many people that do the carnivore diet have tested this, and they are eating straight animal protein and they stay in ketosis. But if you're eating a high carb diet, more protein raises your insulin significantly. So when you eat the potato and the ribeye steak, your insulin goes up. But if you're in a ketogenic state and you eat that ribeye or even 2 ribeyes, your insulin's not going to go up and you will stay in ketosis. So it depends on if you're a carb burner or a fat burner and what your level of insulin resistance is. Dr. Ben Bickman, who's one of my favorite people to listen to, has done an amazing study about this specifically. And the study showed that if you're on the standard American high carb diet, then eating protein will raise your blood sugar and insulin dramatically. But if you're on a low carb diet, eating protein actually doesn't affect your blood sugar and insulin at all. So it really is dependent on where you are with your health and what else you're eating with that meal.
Wow, what a I'm getting a sense of like I'm getting the complete picture here, or a well-rounded picture, and this to me would explain why, I've seen, I'm sure others have as well. You see one person maybe commenting how they did the ketogenic diet, they started eating higher protein and maybe had a negative type experience, and someone else is having a better experience. And it's not to say maybe both of those stories weren't true, but what we don't understand is how that fits into part of the big picture. Like you're saying, it's going to depend on, well, what's that person's insulin resistance and what is the state of their health in that situation. So this helps a lot. Thank you. As we continue this discussion, I would encourage everyone, post any additional comments or questions below. If there's something you'd like to know more about that we talked about today, or if there are new questions that you have that you haven't heard Sarah talk about yet, feel free to post those in the comments below. And also you can visit her website at acceleratedhealthproducts.com. You're welcome to contact her there or reach out by email if there's a specific situation you'd like to ask her about. But thank you, everyone, for joining us on today's topic and questions. Thank you again so much, Sarah, for all the time you put into sharing the information as well. And we look forward to seeing everyone in the next discussion.
Thanks, Lance. Thank you for joining us today. Leave a thumbs up if you've enjoyed this, and please be sure to check the description below for any additional information. Please don't hesitate to leave a comment or ask a question, as I'd love to answer as many of those as I possibly can. If there's a particular topic you'd like to hear more about, please share that in the comments below as well. Thanks again for joining us, and hope to see you again soon.